They taxed the old empire. That was their first sentence, not in French, not in English, but in numbers cold, sovereign, irreversible. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger just slapped a 0.5% levy on all goods coming from ECOWAS states. A tiny percentage number, a seismic crack in the illusion of unity. For 50 years, West Africa moved under the shadow of foreign-backed integration, open borders that serve capital, not people. Ibrahim Traoré and the AES alliance have just said, "We remember who weaponized those borders in 2023. This is not economic policy, it is payback. If you feel this moment, say where you're from. And subscribe not to follow the news, but to help write the next chapter of it." The morning after the 0.5% dignity tax was announced, Nigeria's foreign minister called an emergency press briefing. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled when he said, "This move undermines regional solidarity." He meant the poor just dared to invoice the powerful. For decades, Nigeria was the economic son of ECOWAS. Everything orbited around Lagos, from trade corridors to political decisions. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. They were borderlands, transit zones, not players, not deciders, until now. The fracture began not with bullets but balance sheets. Overnight goods entering AES territory from ECOWAS required a new line in the ledger, 0.5% for sovereignty. On paper, it was tiny. In reality, it was a line in the sand. Transport unions in Ghana began to protest, claiming the tax would hurt profits. Banks in Côte d'Ivoire paused regional loan disbursements. ECOWAS officials began whispering about economic retaliation. But the streets of Ouagadougou told a different story. On a dusty corner near the East Market, a grandmother named Miriam handed over extra coins for a sack of rice and said, "If this is the price of freedom, it's still cheap." She remembered when her son was detained in Abidjan in 2023, stopped, interrogated, and deported because of his AES military badge. She never forgot. Neither did Ibrahim Traoré. The dignity fee, as it came to be called, was not just about trade. It was memory formalized. In schoolyards, teenagers debated the meaning of regional unity. In mosques and churches, sermons invoked the prophet's right to self-determination. In WhatsApp groups across Accra, Lagos, Niamey, and Bamako, a single meme went viral. A map of West Africa cracked down the middle, on one side a golden shovel, on the other a golden chair. One digs, one waits. For the first time in 50 years, the conversation shifted. ECOWAS was no longer assumed to be neutral. Burkina Faso latest news updates were suddenly trending in Dakar, not for violence, but for defiance. Ibrahim Traoré's face appeared on TikTok videos set to reggae beats and liberation chants. But not everyone danced. Inside Nigeria's National Assembly, a senator from Kano stood up and shouted, "If they want to go, let them go, but do not expect access to our markets, our pipelines, our ports." The fracture was real now, not rhetorical, not diplomatic, but structural. Some analysts called it a tragedy, but in the villages of northern Ghana, people used another word, truth. "Maybe ECOWAS was never for us," said Kojo, a farmer who once lost his maize shipment due to a border closure in 2022. "Maybe this split will finally show who cares about people and who just counts containers." In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré remained silent for 3 days after the backlash. When he finally spoke, it was not to apologize. It was to explain. The West African unity they built was unity and dependence. We are building unity and direction. He called the tax a humble price for honorable futures. He did not flinch, and neither did the people. That week, in a sign rarely seen in geopolitics, something strange happened. In a village near Bobo Dioulasso, teenagers held a small parade. No fanfare, no budget, just hand-painted signs. One said, "My country makes decisions now." Another read, "Tax me with pride." In the eyes of the global north, it was madness. Poor countries daring to push back. But in the villages of West Africa, it was medicine. Late but healing. If you are watching this from Nigeria, Côte d'Ivoire, or Senegal, know this. This is not about Burkina Faso alone. This is about you. Comment "Rise" if you believe in dignity over dependency. Share this if you believe borders should not be drawn by foreign contracts. And remember, the next line in this history will not be written in Brussels or Abuja. It will be written by those who refuse to kneel. In Paris, they called it economic sabotage. In Brussels, a reckless rupture of trade norms. In Lagos, the term was simpler betrayal. But in Burkina Faso, on the dusty boulevards of Ouagadougou, the people had another name for the 0.5% levy on ECOWAS goods. They called it the resistance tax, not because it raised revenue, but because it raised heads. In the markets of Niamey, vendors painted 0.5% on their stalls in red chalk, as if to say, we know who we are now. Welcome to African Diary 24, the channel where Africa speaks for itself. From powerful stories and rich cultures to political realities and grassroots movements, we bring you content that informs, inspires, and challenges the narrative. Whether you're here to learn, connect, or explore, you're in the right place. This is Africa, unfiltered, unapologetic, and rising. Hit that subscribe button and become part of the journey. Disclaimer. The content featured on African Diary 24 is for informational, educational, and documentary purposes only. We aim to represent stories with accuracy and integrity, but the views expressed in interviews or commentary do not necessarily reflect those of the channel. We do not promote hate, violence, or political bias. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for sensitive topics. Always do your own research and think critically.
Talk about the ECOWAS and their economic community, which has been thrown into chaos by the recent move by Burkina Faso, Chad, and Mali to impose a common external tariff of just 0.5% on all imports from outside the region. They did that through the implementation of the ECOWAS decided on at the last summit held in Ghana, and as we know, Nigeria is not part of that because the federal government is pursuing independent foreign policy, not towing the line with some of the decisions of the ECOWAS. So let's talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with me. And let me put out there that this is breaking news and that we will be following this closely. Let's begin by understanding what happened when the leaders of ECOWAS met in Ghana. One decision they took was to implement a common external tariff on all imports originating outside the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS. But this was not any ordinary rate. No, sir, this was set at 0.5%. You hear that, half of 1%. At first glance, it may seem like a very insignificant number. You may ask, what is the big deal? After all, it's just 0.5%, right? But here is where things get interesting. The decision to reduce the CET to 0.5% was unprecedented. It was a departure from the previous rate of between 10% and 20%. This dramatic slash had profound implications for regional trade and the economic integration of the 15 member states. Now, why is this important? Because it means that goods imported into any ECOWAS nation from a country outside the community would now attract a significantly reduced import duty. So, if you have a good outside Nigeria, for example, coming into the country, you will now pay only 0.5% import duty on that good. That is a huge difference from the old regime where you paid between 10 and 20%. Now, at this point, you might be wondering what the fuss is all about. After all, wouldn't this encourage more trade within the ECOWAS region? Well, that is exactly what the proponents of the new tariff regime argued. They believed that by reducing the barriers to trade, they would stimulate cross-border commerce among the 15 member states. Now, what are these countries? Well, allow me to refresh your memory. ECOWAS comprises of 15 West African nations, namely Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Côte d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. All these countries are located in West Africa, and together they form what is known as the Economic Community of West African States. These countries agreed to work together for economic integration, peace, and stability in the region. However, despite these noble goals, there was a significant segment of the population, especially traders, who felt left behind in this drive for economic integration. They were skeptical about the benefits of ECOWAS, particularly in the area of free movement of goods and services. The concerns were valid. For years, these traders had faced numerous challenges when transporting their goods across borders. There were issues with customs regulations, border security, and even bureaucratic red tape. These obstacles resulted in higher costs, delays, and sometimes even confiscation of goods. So basically, you can understand that they don't want anything that would further cripple the already bad situation in terms of trading across borders in West Africa. So, when the decision to reduce the CET to 0.5% was made, it came as a surprise to many. This move was seen as an effort to address these long-standing concerns and to make intra-ECOWAS trade more seamless. Supporters of the new regime argued that the reduction would simplify trade procedures, cut down on corruption, and create a more favorable business environment within the region. They envisioned a future where goods could flow freely from one West African nation to another, fostering closer ties and boosting shared prosperity. However, critics were quick to point out the potential drawbacks. They argued that the drastic drop in import duties would make it difficult for local industries to compete with imported goods. This concern was particularly acute in Nigeria, which has a large informal sector and several industries that could be negatively affected by the influx of cheaper foreign products. To them, it was not about hindering trade, but about ensuring sustainable development. They wanted policies that protected local businesses and created jobs for their citizens. As the dust settled on the new CET, one thing was clear: the road ahead for ECOWAS was fraught with challenges. The organization had taken a bold step towards economic integration, but the true impact of this move would only become apparent in the days and months to come. So, basically, this is the background to the current crisis rocking the ECOWAS. When the decision to reduce the CET was made during the last summit in Ghana, it was hoped that it would stimulate trade and foster closer ties among member states. However, the opposite seems to be happening. The proposed 0.5% tariff is now a bone of contention, causing divisions and uncertainty within the organization. The scenario is quite intriguing. The plan was to boost regional trade and economic growth, but it's backfired, leading to a wave of mixed reactions from member states. Now brace yourself for a plot twist. Nigeria has openly opposed the move, while other countries like Ghana have expressed reservations. Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa and a key player in ECOWAS, has been a vocal critic of the proposed tariff. They argue that it would open the floodgates to cheap imports, potentially crippling local industries and exacerbating unemployment. This opposition has put Nigeria on a collision course with the organization. It's a showdown that has far-reaching implications for the future of ECOWAS. Ghana, on the other hand, known for its entrepreneurial spirit and strategic location, has concerns of its own. As a major trading hub in West Africa, Ghana fears that the influx of cheap goods could undermine its industrial ambitions and stifle local businesses. Their opposition adds complexity to the already contentious issue and raises questions about the cohesion of the ECOWAS bloc. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the essence of the matter. The proposed 0.5% tariff by the AES alliance has thrown ECOWAS into turmoil. As countries grapple with the implications for their economies, it's a test of their commitment to regional integration. Will they stand united, or will the economic anxieties tear apart this vital alliance? Your guess is as good as mine. The stage is set for a showdown as ECOWAS grapples with the ramifications of this radical proposal. Only time will tell how this trade storm will eventually blow over. As the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The same could be said about this proposed trade deal. While the aim was to boost regional trade and foster economic integration, the execution has left much to be desired. The concerns raised by Nigeria and Ghana are valid and should be addressed to find a win-win solution for all member states. What happens next could be a game-changer for West Africa. Will the region embrace protectionist measures, stifling growth in the process? Or will it champion free trade, opening up opportunities for its citizens? The decisions made today will shape the economic landscape of tomorrow. Are we on the brink of witnessing a new era of African trade, or are we destined to see yet another grand plan fall apart? Only time will tell. As the drama unfolds, one thing is clear: the future of regional integration hangs in the balance. ECOWAS stands at a crossroads, and the choices made will reverberate throughout West Africa and beyond. So guys, what do you think? Will ECOWAS crumble under the weight of this massive policy shift? Or will it rise to the occasion and champion the cause of African trade integration? Share your thoughts in the comments section below.